women. But millions of heroic Americans continue doing their best every day to maintain BMIs of 35 or higher. These people aren't afraid to fly in the face popular culture deems acceptable and bravely eat and drink whatever they want, whenever they want.
In other news, the nation's single men announce a plan to change their bed sheets by 2019. A woman who left the room crying earlier expects to jump back into the party just like that. And a courtroom artist is clearly infatuated with the bailiff. This 2.5-minute-long session of immersion therapy is finally complete. Your crippling fear of watching video news recaps should no longer be a problem. For more, keep checking theonion.com.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program. The phones, as always, are open for you on this live Saturday edition of the show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Of course, you can bring up whatever happens to be on your mind. Coming up here tonight, the oligarchic empire should give us hope. Did I write that down correctly, Peakless Mountain?
That's right.
I mean, if hope's like, I don't know, a topless stripper or something, then okay.
We'll talk about that. Plus, parents are terrorists, according to one school board captain. Is that right?
That is true. 427,000 parents have responded to a National School Board Association that has labeled them domestic terrorists.
We'll talk about that if we get the chance. Of course, your calls and thoughts come first. And actually, we're going to start out with an unusual guest. Well, he's more of a usual guest for Free Talk Live because we don't have guests.
He's kind of unusual, I mean.
Very often. But Adam Kokesh, like to have him on.
He is a cartoon character as far as I can tell.
From time to time. Welcome back to...
Exactly. No, I'm entirely convinced that you become more imaginary with each passing day.
Yes, no, I was born on the internet, and I continue to live only there exclusively. It's exciting though to be able to connect to the show.
You know, I've met you in person, so I know this not to be true, unless of course you've been stolen and replaced with an exact duplicate.
Captain, that was my stunt double.
Oh,
you've captured the stunt doubles.
This whole time I've been fooled.
I'm like Saddam Hussein. I got all these dummy versions of myself running around that I set up to die.
How do you afford
over and
that?
Over again.
I can't even afford to keep one version of myself running around.
So welcome back to the show, Adam.
Yeah, the struggle is real. Thanks, guys.
You're calling us from, are you in Arizona right now, outside your homestead somewhere?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, you caught me timing-wise today. I'm just out running errands, but part of the fun of what I'm doing today is buying materials for some of the construction projects that we're making part of the launch of Homefront Battle Buddies, our new 501c3 veterans nonprofit. And we're building out a camp kitchen and a big hoop house greenhouse and a gym and a lodge, barracks, dorm building. But I'm very excited. And if you don't mind, Ian, and I got to say first, I mean, shout out to you guys for everything that you've been doing. It was an honor to be an unfortunate honor for me recently to be one of the freaking few in independent media who were given appropriate coverage to the Crypto 6 story and all the potential implications of that. So I'm grateful to I'm sort of honored to have been in that position. But dang, you know, it's frustrating, and you guys have been a support. We've been friendly colleagues, friends, mutual supporters as activists and independent media producers for. I mean, you guys have got a little more time in the game than me, but for me, since I got out of the Marines, November 30, 2006.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, I want to go back and tell a quick story of my experience as a veteran, going back to that era when I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps and I was active with Iraq Veterans Against the War, and I was having trouble sleeping. And I went to the VA in Washington, D.C., because that's where I was living. Flagship of VA healthcare. This is proof that we love and take care of our vets. And by the way, I got tested for depleted uranium there. The results were that I had a, quote, acceptable level of depleted uranium in my system. What is it? I don't know what military standards are for that, but I think I've waited long enough to have kids at this point. I'm looking forward to that maybe finally.
So
but
is that
more
like
importantly,
the amount of rats in your chocolate that is acceptable?
Yes,
Like you can have 6
yes.
per like 100
Rat
gallons
poop.
or what have you?
Oh, geez. Thank you, government, for setting the bar low. So, no, I went into the VA because I was having trouble sleeping. And I talked to a shrink for about 5 minutes. And I walked out of the building that day with a little brown paper bag with 5 different prescriptions in it. And 3 of them had suicide listed as side effects.
Oh, my.
And yeah, this is so.
Just so you know, this drug might kill you.
Is it any wonder that there's a whole bunch of U.S. Marines and Army people that have been killing themselves over the last 2 decades?
Well, I mean, I was listening to the, there was this Scott Horton debate about U.S. intervention. And he's like, yeah, well, you know, this war killed 7,000 soldiers, or 37,000 if you include the ones that killed themselves shortly thereafter.
Yeah, suicide's taken far more lives than actual combat.
Yeah, and they're I mean, I don't want to pick this problem apart too much, but I want to use this story to set up the situation we're in now, the timing, and why this is important to me, because I was very fortunate to be involved with an activist group, Iraq Veterans Against the War, who encouraged me to pursue alternative therapies. Although this is back 2007, 2008, and back then even the access was horrific, for veterans just trying to get off pharmaceuticals, SSRIs, the stuff that school shooters are on before they lose their minds, that stuff. That's one of the things they like to get veterans
selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Warning, may cause you to become a serial killer.
Exactly. And fortunately, most veterans seem to be more, at least taking a sort of relatively noble way out of taking themselves out first, but of course, permanent solution to a temporary problem and a waste of valuable life when obviously this country and this world needs warriors who are willing to stand up independent of authority and do the right. I'll save that rant. But
so veteran activism saved your life. Basically.
Well, it was, because I had access to cannabis, and so I didn't touch 4 of those 5 prescriptions. One of them was Xanax as needed, and I took it and I tried it, and it was like cannabis but with a headache, and I was like, nah, screw this. So I ditched the pills like from the beginning. I never got sucked into them, and having understood from back then, holy crap, man, 13, 14 years ago, that this was a major problem, that there were veterans coming home. I got to say, this is one of my great disappointments in my country, that there has been a great sentiment of, yes, of course, we support the troops. We respect and appreciate those who are willing to put their lives on the line to protect us, no matter how misguided those efforts might be. We want to appreciate that. And I had thought by now, for me, I'm old in this game, man. I'm 39 years old. My time in Iraq and Fallujah was 2004. But the reason I am so motivated to do this now is that there has not been enough meaningful change since then, and veteran suicides are still an epidemic. And it's insanity that government sends American troops to allegedly fight for our freedom, put us in situations where the rules of engagement are manipulated in such a way that they know are going to cause more trauma. And this is not even touching the effects on the victims of these occupations. And then we come home and they say, well, you're not free enough to medicate how you see
right.
fit.
The VA, as I understand it, still cannot prescribe cannabis because it's a Schedule I narcotic, correct?
Absolutely insane. I don't know the technicalities, but yes, the VA has to walk a very strange line where most of the care providers, and I want to say, as much as I will complain about the nightmare that is the VA, it is full of great healthcare providers who take pay cuts to work at the VA and suffer under that administration, under that government bureaucracy. And it is absolute madness. And so a big part of our mission mean, to Homefront Battle Buddies, in our, I think our 501c3 registration language, our mission is to create a community of veterans through online organizing and in-person retreats in order to help veterans, or to facilitate veterans helping each other pursue alternative therapies not available through the VA. So we're talking about
that sounds interesting, and I want you to stick with us and tell me a little bit more about that. So stand by. We got more with Adam Kokesh coming up here in moments. We'll find out, of course, website, contact information for Homefront Battle Buddies here in just a moment. What exactly does that mean? I mean, are they going to be doing ayahuasca journeys? Guided psilocybin retreats? I want to know a little bit more about what exactly he's got planned, because it sounds pretty interesting. So you can join us here as well, 603-283-6160, whether you want to talk about the nightmare of the VA or whatever's on your mind. Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number 603-283-6160. You can dial in, talk about whatever you want. We got all kinds of stuff on the table to discuss here tonight, but we're starting things out with a special guest. Adam Kokesh is with us, the host of Adam versus the Man. I think that's still on hiatus for the moment. We'll get an update from him on that in just a second. But coming up on Tuesday night this week here in this studio, and you'll be able to watch it on our Odyssey channel, streaming live at video.freetalklive.com. You'll be able to watch Arya and Conan. I'm going to be in the studio, but I don't like, self-abuse that much, so I'm not going to likely participate.
Keep an extinguisher handy.
They've got some of the hottest peppers known to man. In fact, including the Carolina Reaper, supposedly the hottest pepper in the world. They're going to start with jalapenos. That's nothing. Habaneros are going to be next. Okay, some people would have trouble with that. Ghost peppers. Now we're getting super hot. And then the Carolina Reaper. They're going to see who wimps out first and goes for the ice cream and the milk.
I feel are they keeping the entire gallon tub of ice cream? Because for me, that would be appropriate.
I expect they're going to have as much of that on hand as possible.
I feel like I would spontaneously combust just being in the same room as those peppers.
It's going to be pretty brutal, and it could be a lot of fun to watch two people torture themselves for your entertainment. On Tuesday night, this is going to be internet only. You'll be able to watch it after the radio show's over. So 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, round about then, you'll be able to tune in over at video.freetalklive.com. It's coming up Tuesday night. Adam Kokesh is with us. What's the status, before we get back into Homefront Battle Buddies, what's the status of your show, Adam versus the Man?
Yeah, we've gone to a weekly format doing Wednesday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific time. We are live on Odyssey.com / at Adam Kokesh.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Odyssey, so I'm glad to know that you guys are over there because these big tech platforms, they are on the way out. But let's focus here like a laser because I know you got a limited amount of time with us here tonight, Adam, and I appreciate you coming on. HomefrontBattleBuddies.com. Yeah. Are you guys doing like psilocybin retreats for veterans? Is that what's going on here?
Yes and no. There is a very clear line in order to maintain 501c3 status for the strategy that we've decided to take on in terms of raising money and being able to be effective as hosts and facilitators for whatever veterans want to do, helping each other. So as the nonprofit, technically we are not. But what we are doing is creating a space for every possible alternative therapy that any veteran might possibly want to pursue. So I can say, of course, being in a cannabis legal state, every time we do a retreat, there's going to be a cannabis caterer. You're going to have the full array of every type of way you could consume it and good coaching in doing so and a safe place to experiment. Similarly, with whatever else we're able to safely facilitate, we are going to be providing there. So I'm particularly excited about psilocybin mushrooms, obviously as a PTSD therapy, MDMA for the therapeutic effects as well, and ketamine when for antidepressant purposes is administered by a professional to the extent that we can do it in that way that is safe and sort of supervised, such that it's what I would want if I was going to experiment in a comfortable space where we've got experts around, we've got a safe facility, we've got all, trip sitters, all of those kinds of things.
Now you're not just taking some drugs and throwing them up against the wall and let's see what happens. These are drugs that have been studied over the last couple of decades, and the studies are getting more intense, right?
Ian, as veterans, I believe we absolutely have the right to take drugs and just throw them against the wall if we want to also, okay?
No doubt.
So, no, but I before we get into that,
I'd say that you have that right, not as veterans, but as
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. Gentlemen, because I know for you guys as libertarians, and the bigger idea of the perversion of the warrior class, because I see most people who are activists are more legitimately warriors than people in the military, because a warrior is someone who's going to put their life on the line to do the right thing. A soldier is someone who signs up to wear a uniform and kill for politicians and get medals pinned on their chest. Screw that. It's a perversion of the legitimate warrior spirit that y'all embody even with Free Talk Live. And the reason I think what we are doing with Battle Buddies is not just so much more important now because it is so overdue, but because of where we are with the drug war as a whole. If we, as veterans, as a privileged class in the eyes of the state, and I don't endorse that one bit whatsoever, but you have to admit that is the reality.
It exists.
We are that.
That's where we're
Yes.
at.
And if we don't have our rights respected in treating mental health issues that are the product of our service of government, what chance do the rest of y'all have?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean to say that at all pejoratively.
And
I mean to hold on. I mean to present this as the opportunity to put veterans on the front lines and use this as the battering ram to knock down the remainder of this perverse drug war. And so the veterans fight to say, look, if you can't come to terms with reality, government, and all of your drug war supporters, that veterans, you can't maintain your credibility as a politician and say veterans should not have legal, safe access to these therapies. No. This is an easier opportunity for all of us to put our foot down collectively and say this criminal drug war has got to end.
Yeah, this is great.
Love it, man.
This is great. You can really back them into a corner with this, and also help people as well. Which, because we've talked about some of the studies here on PTSD specifically, and depression as well regarding mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms or psilocybin. You mentioned MDMA.
You broke it, and you won't let me fix it.
And actually, we're starting to see some cities around, and Seattle's a recent one. We'll talk about that coming up here in a bit. Once we get you off the air, but cities like Denver, there's some other places, of course, Oregon with total drug decrim for personal possession. So we're starting to see the cracks in the breaking in the war on drugs, and I hope this shoves a stick of dynamite into the whole artifice.
Yeah, well, this is a really critical time because there's more pressure on the people in the United States than ever before. There's more expectation of meaningful change than ever before. There's more psychological manipulation than ever before. There's more suppression of good medicine in favor of bad medicine than ever before. I don't think I have to explain that one, right, in terms of where we are right now. And I know that there's an appeal to this as libertarians for ideological reasons, but there's something more unifying and transcendent of all politics when we look at the warrior class that supposedly is protecting society and see how we are treating them and what we are doing and how perverse it is as just a spiritual function of society to respect people who are willing to put their lives on the line, to defend it, to serve it, to create value for it. And the example of the veterans' experience in America is so perverse that it has to be a point where we can push and make real change. And what we're doing with Homefront Battle Buddies is not at all limited to veterans for the long run in terms of decriminalization of all illegal substances. That is our position, that every human has the right to put what they want in their own body, but creating a model for safe and effective delivery of these suppressed technologies and therapies to make them available for every human on Earth.
Love it. Adam Kokesh, thanks for spending time with us here tonight. The website, homefrontbattlebuddies.com. Check that out there. Follow them on social media and follow what they're doing. It's very interesting, and thanks for the call tonight. More coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odyssey, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odyssey started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odyssey. You can watch live or anytime on our Odyssey channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odyssey today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher with the Week in Review. A British lawmaker has died after being stabbed. Sir David Amess was married with 5 children. A man's been arrested on suspicion of murder. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has spoken of his shock and sadness at the loss of, quote, one of the kindest people in politics. He is the second serving MP to be killed in the past 5 years, following the murder of Joe Cox in 2016. Ollie Barrett reports from London.
Police say they were called to reports of a stabbing at a constituency surgery being held by Conservative MP Sir David Amess. In a statement, police confirm he was treated by emergency services but died at the scene. A 25-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murder and a knife was recovered. Police say they're not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. David Amess was 69 years old and had been an MP in Essex in South East England since 1983. Ollie Barrett, London.
The US will lift travel restrictions for fully vaccinated international travellers, including from more than 24 previously banned countries, on November the 8th. The White House is also easing restrictions on overland border crossings from Canada and Mexico. Our US correspondent, Caroline Malone, reports.
Fully vaccinated visitors will be able to travel to the United States from November 8th. Including those from previously banned countries. The White House says the travellers will have to show proof of both a vaccination and a recent negative COVID test before boarding flights. People travelling by land will not need to provide a negative test. Pandemic restrictions are also being eased on overland crossings from Canada and Mexico. In September, the Biden administration announced it would lift bans on European and other travellers. The White House says the new travel policies are being guided by public health. Caroline Malone, Washington.
India is also relaxing its travel restrictions for foreign tourists amid a decline in daily COVID-19 infections. It will grant tourist visas to passengers arriving on chartered flights. Our correspondent Rebecca Bunden reports from Mumbai.
India's borders have been closed to overseas tourists since March 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Following the relaxations, which come into effect on Friday, India will also offer tourist visas to passengers arriving on commercial flights from the 15th of November. The move is expected to bring some relief to a sector that has been battered by the pandemic. But some doctors are concerned that this could fuel a third wave of infections, which many say is inevitable as the festive season is also underway in the country, prompting many people to travel and gather in crowds. Rebecca Bunden, Mumbai.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Open phones. Live Saturday show. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio tonight, Ian.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And the Reverend Captain Kickass.
And I've actually had on my show prep here for, I don't know, a few days. Looks like about a week or so.
Before you go on, I just want to opine for a minute on Adam's presentation and that kind of thing. Because what I really appreciate about what he's doing there.
With Homefront Battle Buddies.
HomefrontBattleBuddies.com.
Yeah.
Is veterans helping veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because I like that is what is happening with him and that particular organization. Frequently, veterans don't like to open up to people who don't understand what they've been through or where they've been, how they got to where they're at. And so I think it's very important.
Some people can't relate.
Right. For veterans to help other veterans, particularly when it comes to healing and when it comes to like the philosophies of freedom. because I really feel like most people join the Army thinking that they're going to do good, or the military thinking that they're going to go in, they're going to do something honorable, and a bunch of them come out going, that was not what I thought it was going to be going in. And like Adam said, they end up becoming, mercenaries for politicians rather than warriors, right? They had the warrior spirit, and so they come out finding out, and they're traumatized by this. And
it is a very unique form of trauma. Yeah. And having never been through it, there's always going to be a gulf between what they have experienced and what I have experienced.
So for veterans who have been there and have been through it and, have done some healing and all of that kind of thing, to be helping other veterans get through that, to me, I think is a really, really noble thing.
Yeah, I didn't know all the details about it. I mean, I just saw he was promoting this new thing, and he sent something to me about it. I'm like, well, come on, let's talk about it. And it's even better than I thought it was going to be. So very, very cool. And what I wanted to talk about was a related story, which is Seattle. Now the largest U.S. city to approve quasi-decriminalization of natural psychedelics.
Okay, so first of all, decriminalization in most states and forms of government, at least in the United States, doesn't mean decriminalization. It means something like, we're just going to move it to the bottom of the list of priorities to prosecute. It doesn't mean that,
we won't put you in jail. We'll just fine you for it.
Yeah, or we'll ignore it unless we're bored and really don't have anything better to do, and then we'll go ahead and
we'll find out what that means coming up here in moments. But we'll get into that.
But there was a word in front of that,
quasi.
So now that makes it even more muddy than it was before.
Well, we'll see what they have to say about it. But first, I want to go to your phone calls and thoughts. We got Pure as Pure on the line in Illinois calling us, listening online. Go ahead.
Hi, it's Pure as Pure,
Welcome.
singer-songwriter.
You're on the air. What's on your mind tonight?
Yeah. So, as a singer-songwriter, when this pandemic first broke out, I want to start with this. I was traveling from Phoenix to Illinois, and we didn't have to wear a face covering yet on the flights.
Okay.
And they were in the media, just saying that this virus is so deadly and potent that people would just be falling over, and they were even sharing clips about this.
From China.
Yeah. So people would believe that it's real. So, and they said that they start enforcing the lockdowns, and they said that these should be lasting for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And only if we would have just said no then, we wouldn't even be in the situation that we are in right now.
Absolutely. But people are likely to not say no because they've been trained to be obedient. They've been trained to go along to get along and do what they're told. So now here we are.
Yes. And in my journey, I started going to online platforms without even sharing first in the studio. I started just telling people that they are trying to, this is bigger than just to wear a face covering, and there is no virus to be shown that it's isolated. So I started telling my audience and my platform that we should know what's coming next. And, I did some 2021 world predictions, and I told them that they are trying to roll out these vaccinations, and that's the times that we are in up to this point right now.
Pure, can you do me a favor and back off your microphone, an inch or two? It might help a little bit. You're a little over-driven, a little over-modulated.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect.
Yeah, maybe I went out. Yeah, I was saying that, I'll just pick up where I left off.
Yeah, go ahead.
So now we are in the times where they are putting these injections inside of humanity. And, early on in my career, I started telling everybody that that a time like this would come. And, this is spiritual, given that we all are spiritual beings. So, I also touch on consciousness as well, as this is bigger than a whole thing that we see in a 3D matrix, the world that they created for us through institutions ran by banks and, family elites, the globalists.
Yeah, this does get pretty deep, and it really is an important time in our history where the lines have been drawn between those who just want to, do what they're told so they can have the next bread and circus shoved in their face, and the rest of us who are willing to stand up and say, we'd rather take our risks and live our lives how we want to.
And since he brought up the spiritual aspect, I mean, it has always struck me that this is a blood sacrifice. You are going to bleed for your faith in the government if you take this shot.
Because you must choose who you must serve, either God or demon. And I'm not sure how much time that I have to speak on here. I called in. I love the work that you all are doing. Maybe we can get on for a longer period of time at a later date. I'm welcome to doing that. My email is purespure@gmail.com, and I would love to speak with you all. My latest single, Sun, is available on all digital streaming platforms, and everything that I have put out has been spiritual. So,
how did you come across Free Talk Live? Just curious.
Well, I was on the line earlier, and a guy recommended it to you all. He was a part of this network where they host like stations or whatnot. And I asked for some because I'm in my press right now since I got singles released. I asked, are there any others who are preaching freedom and enlightening everybody that I should be a part of? And he mentioned you all, and I just happened to click on right now and give you all a call. And
nice.
It was divine. It was divine.
Hey, I appreciate you being out there. And this is a nationally syndicated radio show. We're also, of course, online as well at freetalklive.com. And you're always welcome to email me at ian@freetalklive.com. But we're always open phone. So, if there's ever something going on that you want to rant about, you want to talk about, just like you did tonight, man, we're here for you. And I appreciate your call tonight. Thank you, Purist Pur. Thanks for joining us here.
And I just want to point out for people who are, atheistic or at least skeptical, even if you don't see this as a spiritual battle, you have to recognize that there is a psychological impact that happens to a person when they are willing to pierce their own skin, to put something they don't know what it is into their body beyond the reach of their immediate defenses. And the reason that they're doing this is because of their trust in the government.
Yep, that's true. Or the medical establishment. And, those are both interlinked. They're tied in with one another and not trustworthy, in my opinion. I mean, they've proven that.
And even if you don't see this as a spiritual battle, there is definitely a contest between you being forced to do things and you choosing to do things.
Yep, and you can join us here and share your thoughts. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up, we could talk about some of the things that they are looking to shove down people's throats. There's definitely all kinds of crazy stuff in the news. And now, and if you're living in California, you might not even be able to have a gas-powered lawnmower. I mean, there's just all kinds of nutsy stuff out there. It's Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want here. The number 603-283-6160. In the studio with you tonight, it's Ian,
Peakless Mountaineer,
and a third guy with a beard.
And also, I want to let you know about Intercoin. Can help businesses and organizations launch their own currency or raise money using their own token. Intercoin.org has launched worldwide, and if there's a token you want to launch or an app you want to build, go to intercoin.org, enter your email, and the team will get in touch and learn about your needs. And while you're there, if you want, you can get some of the Intercoin investor tokens for yourself. So head over to intercoin.org. There's so many different directions we can go here. We've talked about psychedelic therapies for people with like PTSD and severe depression.
I just wanted a quick note on that. I mean, they spend so much time and so many resources and so much money turning a human being into a killer of men.
Yes.
And they spend absolutely no time turning them back.
Right.
And it always struck me as you are breaking someone.
Yeah.
And breaking something is a lot easier than putting it back together.
Because, well, they don't care about you. I mean, they're the government, so they have no feelings. Individually, the people that work at government, some of them may still have feelings, but collectively, the whole sort of concept of the state, it is heartless, and that's just the reality of it.
And I find something that goes on in society, we've all heard the phrase, we support the troops. I find that to be empty and hollow. I find that most people don't actually support the troops. They support the idea of having soldiers deployed by government, but they don't actually support the troops. They don't go out, they don't volunteer to help them when they come back from combat. They don't go out, they don't donate to any of these organizations that are there. They don't put the needles to the government itself to help these men who have been broken, who have been traumatized, who have gone out and murdered for what? The flag, quote unquote, right? They don't go out and assist in any way. They just give a platitude of, yeah, we support the troops.
Oh, thank you for your service.
Well, it's always been a way of saying, I won't question our war. Yeah, that's what support the troops has always really meant.
It's an empty and hollow gesture from most people.
Coming up, I know, Captain, you had something about the Milgram Experiments, which may tie into some of the discussions we've been having.
We were talking about, the last caller was talking about, like, sort of the pandemic, the beginning of the Wuhan flu before it was named, COVID or whatever. Like, there were several. It was called the Boomer Doomer for a while, right? Because it only affects old people. Like, well, they're all boomers. So, but in and of itself, the government's propagandization of the citizenry or the people who live in the geographic area of the United States is in and of itself a form of the Milgram experiment.
Yeah, well, we need to talk about what that is here coming up. So, pull up whatever you got on the Milgram thing. But I do want to get into the story about Seattle since it's directly related to what we were discussing earlier. And that is that Reason.com is reporting Seattle has now become the largest city in the United States with a hands-off policy for people who consume natural psychedelics. So recently, within the last 2 weeks, apparently, the city council there unanimously approved a resolution that says, quote, the investigation, arrest, and prosecution of anyone engaging in entheogen-related activities should be among the city of Seattle's lowest enforcement priorities. It further urges the Seattle Police Department to, quote, move toward the formal codification and adoption of that practice as departmental policy.
I'm gonna guess.
I'm super curious what they call an entheogen, like what they classify that as.
I'm gonna guess that you can't find publicly available this list of priorities.
Oh yeah,
that they speak of. Yes. I bet you can't find it anywhere.
That would be an interesting list to read, yeah.
Be a very interesting list.
And you'd think it would be vital for us citizenry to know what it is important to avoid doing.
Yeah. Like, for example, where do following up on rape kits fall on that list of priorities as compared to arresting people for drugs?
Right. The new policy, which is similar to the one approved by Washington, D.C. voters last November, applies to, quote, any living, fresh, dried, or processed plant or fungal material, including teas or powders, that may contain currently scheduled or analog psychoactive indolamines, tryptamines, or phenylethamines.
So still no toad licking.
Including, but not limited to, psilocybin mushrooms, ayahuasca tea, mescaline, and iboga. So basically any kind of plant that is used for...
Or fungus. Because fungi are not plants,
that's true.
even though they act like them.
That's a good point. Or any of those things, naturally occurring things that are used for entheogenic trips, which is a new term for psychedelic, entheogen meaning the God within, that is included here. It also covers cultivation and
it's actually,
sharing.
Creation of the God within. So that which generates Theo, God, in.
So it also covers cultivation and sharing of such entheogens. So you can't sell it, but you can grow them, according to the Seattle...
Can you share?
Yes, that's what they say. Yeah, you can share it. And now it was already covered by a city general policy of refraining from arresting drug users, but this takes things a little bit further. It joins other U.S. cities in urging tolerance of psychedelic use. Of course, we know that, and we've covered these things in Denver in 2019. They were the first city to approve a groundbreaking initiative that made adult possession of just psilocybin the city's lowest law enforcement priority. And then recently, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Oakland, California, Santa Cruz, California, all enacted similar measures, some of them doing the more wider cutting. Anything natural is now essentially decriminalized.
Why this and why now?
Because it's time?
Well, of course, but why not just go legalize everything? Why this little tiny baby step?
Well,
Why psychedelics?
They haven't legalized any of this.
Okay, but do what they're doing for all drugs.
Because, well, first of all, Oregon did.
Why just this?
Oregon did.
And why now?
In 2020. Oregon did in 2020. They passed on a ballot measure a decriminalization of all drugs for personal use. So you still can't manufacture or sell them, but you can have them. And it's going to be interesting to look back here and see how that's gone for the last year. I have not seen any kind of retrospective on that yet.
Well, so for example, the evidence on microdosing MDMA in treating PTSD is pretty clear and absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, why is that left off of this?
Well,
there's even a microdose, because MDMA is a synthetic chemical. So even a microdose of MDMA, in spite of the fact that you might be using this to treat the fact that you exploded heads 1,000 miles away.
Look, I don't disagree with you about this, but I would say if you want the answer to the question, ask all of the Liberty reps here in New Hampshire why none of them have proposed an end to the war on drugs at this point. I mean, it costs nothing for them to put in a bill into the state legislature. We've got dozens of free staters that are in the state legislature now here in New Hampshire, and they're still just nibbling around the outside edges.
I have a one-word answer for that. Well, I'll make it a two-word answer. His Excellency. So Sununu has stated from the beginning that he will absolutely never budge in any way, shape, or form on the possibility of legalization of marijuana.
It's a weak-ass excuse. The reason they would likely give you is political capital. We don't have enough of it, and we don't want to waste our time on that. But the reality is, look, we finally got Mike Sylvia, who's one of the best Liberty reps out there, to put forward a New Hampshire independence bill that would be if it actually gets on the ballot, which requires 60+% of the
seems to be gaining traction.
And compared to that, legalization of marijuana is small potatoes.
I get what you're saying. The point is, a lot of these politicians, he was the only guy willing to do it. Now, since then, there's now 9 co-sponsors that have, by his courage, been willing to sign on to this. But it takes that one guy who's willing to go and put their political career, if you will, on the line and put something like this forward. So the reason why this is a long answer to your question, Captain, is this is politics. It's slow. It's frustrating. It's awful, and basically all these people have the courage to do as politicians is sort of nibble around the edges at prohibition. We never hear anybody say, all right, let's just end this thing. This whole prohibition thing is insane.
They must not listen to Free Talk Live, because we say that all the time.
Some of them do listen. Some of them are longtime supporters of this show.
So there's probably someone in Seattle who is a big muckety-muck who absolutely will not budge on artificial chemicals being used for any legitimate medical purpose.
May not be,
if they happen to make you feel good.
There may not be a movement on that. I mean, it may. So there's a group called Decriminalize Nature that is behind a lot of this stuff. And I just found out about them within the last month or so. I think
it's a nice phrase. I like it.
Yeah, Bonnie brought them up, and we're not interviewing them.
Argument, that's for sure.
We're not right. Well, we're not interviewing them, but I would guess that if we had one of their people on, they would say, "Hey, look, we agree prohibition should end, but we've got to convince politicians." And so we formed a group, Decriminalize Nature. This is kind of the next step away from, the reform of marijuana laws, people, right? So they started with cannabis. Now they're moving to the next thing. All right, well, you okay with this plant? How about these plants over here? Can we do all plants now? So that's kind of like the next step. And I agree with you guys. We need to just end the entire thing. But unfortunately, we haven't yet found the politician who's willing to take that to task. There's more coming up here in a moment. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the free private cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. FreePrivateCities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher with the Week in Review. A British lawmaker has died after being stabbed. Sir David Amess was married with 5 children. A man's been arrested on suspicion of murder. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has spoken of his shock and sadness at the loss of, quote, one of the kindest people in politics. He is the second serving MP to be killed in the past 5 years, following the murder of Joe Cox in 2016. Ollie Barrett reports from London.
Police say they were called to reports of a stabbing at a constituency surgery being held by Conservative MP Sir David Amess. In a statement, police confirm he was treated by emergency services but died at the scene. A 25-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murder and a knife was recovered. Police say they're not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. David Amess was 69 years old and had been an MP in Essex in southeast England since 1983. Ollie Barrett, London.
The US will lift travel restrictions for fully vaccinated international travellers, including from more than 24 previously banned countries, on November the 8th. The White House is also easing restrictions on overland border crossings from Canada and Mexico. Our US correspondent Caroline Malone reports.
Fully vaccinated visitors will be able to travel to the United States from November 8th. Including those from previously banned countries. The White House says the travellers will have to show proof of both a vaccination and a recent negative COVID test before boarding flights. People travelling by land will not need to provide a negative test. Pandemic restrictions are also being eased on overland crossings from Canada and Mexico. In September, the Biden administration announced it would lift bans on European and other travellers. The White House says the new travel policies are being guided by public health. Caroline Malone, Washington.
India is also relaxing its travel restrictions for foreign tourists amid a decline in daily COVID-19 infections. It will grant tourist visas to passengers arriving on chartered flights. Our correspondent Rebecca Bunden reports from Mumbai.
India will also offer tourist visas to passengers arriving on commercial flights from the 15th of November. The move is expected to bring some relief to a sector that has been battered by the pandemic. But some doctors are concerned that this could fuel a third wave of infections, which many say is inevitable as the festive season is also underway in the country, prompting many people to travel and gather in crowds. Rebecca Bunden, Mumbai.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. The US government has donated over 3.5 million doses of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine to Nigeria. The donation came through COVAX, the global initiative ensuring equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. Our Nigeria correspondent Tessem Akende reports.
The U.S. mission in Nigeria in a statement says the vaccines arrived to the country on Thursday, 14th October. This brings the number of vaccine donations to the country to over 7.5 million. Only about 2% of Nigeria's population has so far been fully vaccinated against the disease from a planned 40% before the end of 2021. The U.S. believes the vaccines are the best tools to ending the pandemic and has pledged to purchase and donate 1.1 billion vaccine doses worldwide. It has so far delivered more than 180 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to more than 100 countries across the world. Tessim Akende, Jos.
The World Health Organization has announced the formation of a new scientific advisory group to try to figure out where and how the coronavirus originated. The group includes scientists from China, which has faced international scrutiny over its cooperation with previous efforts. Here's our US correspondent, Ira Spitzer.
The WHO says the Scientific Advisory Group for the Origins on Novel Pathogens will include scientists from 26 countries, including the US and China. The first known cases of the virus were discovered in the Chinese city of Wuhan in December of 2019. Earlier this year, a WHO team concluded that the virus had likely originated from bats, but that more research was needed. However, officials at the WHO later indicated that the Chinese government didn't provide them unrestricted access to data from the initial days of the outbreak or to a lab which has come under scrutiny. Beijing has rejected this, saying that it considers the investigation into the virus's possible origins in China to be complete.
I'm Kate Fisher in Washington, and that was the Week in Review.
The American robin heralds the beginning of spring in temperate climates across North America. Its red breast makes it easily identifiable as the most disturbingly efficient murderer in the animal kingdom. Robins inculcate their young with these twisted maws. We see an adult robin feeding its young with the ripped-apart viscerae of an innocent worm. Like the Greek hero Atreus eating the flesh of his children at his own table, this black deed must surely curse the entire species. Even the most depraved acts of humanity pale in comparison to the robin's wickedness. Like idiot rapists, they commit their foul deeds with neither foresight nor hindsight. They live entirely in the present. Living beyond space and time, their god is the awful seething maelstrom of chaos at the center of the unfeeling universe.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Of course, you can bring up anything you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Whether you want to weigh in on the various different cities and also one state, Oregon, doing some level of decriminalization of drugs. Now, the most recent news, as we were discussing, Seattle, big city, the largest so far, apparently, to put in a decriminalization measure on entheogenic natural substances. So, mushrooms, plants, anything that can get you into an altered state of consciousness.
Again, not toads.
Not toads. Yep, that's right. Inanimate objects, I guess.
No, not inanimate objects, just plants and fungi.
True. Are there other inanimate objects that can get you high that aren't plants and fungi?
Well, I mean, for one thing, a plant that is still alive can get you an entheogenic effect. But yeah, there's a number of tree frogs that also have entheogenic effects.
Yes, that is not an inanimate object, though.
If you take its skin, it still works.
I get what you're saying. All right. So anyway, the point being, these natural substances are now decriminalized in Seattle, making them the lowest law enforcement priority. So in theory, law enforcement could still say, well, we've run out of absolutely everything else that we can possibly do here.
No one's even speeding.
And now we're going to arrest people for this. But usually what happens is they kind of, at least from what I've seen in the cities or heard about in the cities where these things have been done, is they do kind of leave people alone. So this is good news ultimately, and without a state level change, it's really all they can do. And it is also interesting that the city council, like I believe in Santa Cruz and in some other places, did vote unanimously, meaning there was not one single city councilor that said, no, we need to keep prosecuting people for this.
There's a much easier way for them to have done this, though. Well, I guess not on that municipal level or on a that small of a level. It just seems to me, and I think everybody else with a lick of logic, that they should just remove those particular substances off of whatever schedule that they're on.
No, they can't.
But I understand that. At the city level, they can't.
Then you could start receiving funding for nonprofit organizations that say utilized psilocybin in the treating of PTSD.
The point that I'm making, I'm not saying that this isn't good news, particularly for people who use this stuff to treat things like PTSD or depression or other mental illnesses. This is good news in that people will finally be able to get some relief from these things, from these particular items. The point I'm trying to make here is that it should not take a piece of legislation for every little thing to make it happen.
Yeah.
Right? It shouldn't be, legalization by 1,000 paper cuts. It should just be, oh, look, there's a law that says this is illegal. That law is wrong. Let's go ahead and get rid of that law, which nobody ever does.
Well, I'd vote for you, Captain, if you were running for state rep.
Thanks.
And I think part of this is not wanting to admit you were wrong. So, I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, we made a law against this, and it's actually not dangerous at all.
But most of the people in office...
It's another thing to be like, well, this just isn't as dangerous as we thought it was. It's still dangerous.
But most of the people in office weren't even there when these laws were passed.
Right.
I mean, these things are 50 years old at this point.
But you represent an institution, and that institution cannot be wrong.
Can't be wrong. Yeah. Well, things do change slowly over time. The story at Reason.com points out that last February, the Washington Supreme Court effectively decriminalized simple drug possession by overturning a law that made possession a felony without any evidence of intent or knowledge. So if somebody had, if you're wearing your friend's coat, and there's a bag of cocaine in there, you get pulled over, get searched, and then they arrest you. There's a felony charge. So the Supreme Court overturned that, saying, hey, you didn't know it was there. They can't prove that, so therefore, boom, it's legal.
That goes against the ignorance is no excuse to, not know the law.
Yeah, it does, but that's okay. The legislature responded by approving a new law that included a mens rea requirement, meaning that somebody would have to know. The law also changed simple possession of a controlled substance from a Class C felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison and a maximum fine of $10,000 to a gross misdemeanor, which carries a maximum penalty of a year in jail and a $1,000 fine. So that, even though they passed a new law to respond to the Supreme Court, the new law doesn't have as severe of penalties as the previous law. So that is technically decriminalization in Washington State.
So I was just going to say, because the article led with Seattle, the city, and now we've sort of branched out, and now we're talking about the state of Washington. Right. Which parts of it apply to the decriminalization? The whole state or just the city of Seattle?
The entire state of Washington has now made simple possession of a controlled substance a misdemeanor instead of a felony.
Thank you.
So you will be spending no more than a year in jail instead of 5 years
at
in
the
prison.
state level. That doesn't mean, though, like if a Fed comes in and busts you for something,
they can't control the feds.
Right, yeah. So you could still face federal charges for the same thing, even though you're in the state of Washington.
Although we don't hear a lot about the federal government messing with the states where cannabis is legal. They're not going and raiding, grow ops or whatever.
Look, don't get me wrong. I am from the old school. I never thought that I would, in my lifetime, see anything close to this. I didn't even think I would see marijuana legalized anywhere in the United States. And yet I lived in Seattle, where I was 3 blocks down the road from a marijuana store, recreational marijuana store, and I got to see it and experience it whenever I wanted to, and it was great.
And you did.
I did, and it was great. I can't tell you how great it was. And
you've told me. It was pretty great.
I probably
you told me about the grab bags they had, where you got like discounted stuff that they couldn't sell or was almost expired, and got it real cheap. That's awesome.
That wasn't quite enough to let you know how great
this was. It sounds pretty awesome.
They had wake and bake specials, so if you like, they would open.
If you can get up before noon, you get a discount.
They would open at like 10 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday or something like that instead of noon. Because nobody does anything before noon, right?
Right.
So, if you got there early during, we'll call it happy hour, the first hour that they were open, you got like an extra 10% off or something. Yeah, it was great.
Now, here's an interesting detail about this new change. Again, the decriminalization in Washington State to a misdemeanor from a felony for simple possession. These provisions expire July 1st of 2023, which then would return Washington to the situation after the Supreme Court ruling, meaning that unless they can prove that you knew you had these drugs, they can't convict you,
Right.
which essentially is legal to possess unless they can prove otherwise. So obviously they catch you buying it or something. They can get you there. But just walking down the street is going to be a tough one. Marijuana Moment reports that, quote, the expiration date is meant to bring lawmakers back to the table to renegotiate a path forward after experimenting with the new approach. However, a bill introduced in February of this year would eliminate penalties for possessing personal use amounts of controlled substances, including psychedelics. So it sounds like some legislator in Washington said, all right, well, next door Oregon seems like the place ain't burning down. You know, it's been a year now since they had decriminalization of possession, and this was done on the ballot box in Oregon. So now a legislator is trying the same approach, and I think that's something we're going to see sooner rather than later. Because this is a lot of these politicians, they're monkey see, monkey do. They look over,
yeah, they are.
You know, and this is true of tyrannical things. You know, they wait for New York.
That is certainly what we experienced here during the lockdowns.
Yep.
Was that at first His Excellency didn't do the outright tyrannical things that the other neighbors did.
Right.
But as time went on, he went, oh, you know, I really should match my policies to those of Massachusetts.
Sure did. So they do it for tyranny. They look around and say, oh, New York's got a smoking ban. Well, let's try that here. It hasn't been overturned there, so we probably want to overturn it here. Let's do it. Well, the same thing happens when it comes to more freedom as well. Oh, wow, Oregon hasn't had, you know, people aren't killing each other in the streets over drugs because they're high all the time.
Will this get me votes? Oh, well, then I better adopt it as my policy.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're on the cusp of this, I think, and you're going to probably see bills like this popping up in more places than just the initial, just the next door neighbor states. It wouldn't surprise me if there's one here in New Hampshire. There's 800, 900 bills. So, I don't think anyone has looked through them all yet to see what's there. But I can tell you there were at least, I looked at just the cannabis-related stuff. And there's I don't know, half a dozen or more cannabis decrim, legalization.
Well, it's great to see it when liberty is catching.
Yeah. So you can share your thoughts here. The number is 603-283-6160. Let's get into obedience. Milgram studies. Somebody's looking at that. They got some comments. Captain, you thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
We'll talk about what the Milgram study was, why it matters. That's on the way here. It's on Free Talk Live.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do You think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. The phones are open here if you want to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, you've got Ian.
Nicholas Mountaineer.
And the Reverend Captain Kickass.
Also, Bitcoin.com is a great source to get started learning about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Go there to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and you'll find all kinds of interesting information, including videos that you can watch with an introductory video that lasts all of 3 minutes of your life. To tell you the basics about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. So if you want to get started learning about this, now is the best time, unless you're driving, in which case, wait till you get home. Go to bitcoin.com and get started there. Also, if you want the latest news headlines, you can get those there as well. Just go to news.bitcoin.com. They got them every single day. That's news.bitcoin.com. Coming up, we got the Milgram studies, the obedience, conformity. Was it obedience or conformity studies? Kind of the same thing, but
authoritarian study, actually.
So we'll get into what that is all about, and what there's some new thoughts about it, I guess.
Does it show what we think it does?
Yeah, we'll look at it here in just a bit. Of course, your calls and thoughts are welcome. So let's go first to the phones and to the fun. Major Payne is on the line in Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live. Major Payne. Hello, Major Payne.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
You're on the air. Go ahead.
I had my hands busy.
Okay.
Yeah. A few years back, I was hemmed up for a few months in a federal facility out west. And, of course, you hear stories from all these boys, and everybody's got a tale to tell you.
Sure.
But I heard there's some more than one cat in there. Out there, they got a thing they call ghost dope. So let's say you got 3 people that will testify that you delivered them an ounce a week for 3 years. They can do the math and multiply that back and charge you everything plus what they busted you with.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that a federal thing?
Dude. Yep. They pull it right out of thin air.
Wow, that's crazy.
I'm not surprised.
Isn't it?
It is crazy. And people should be outraged. I'm just so... I don't know. I've been looking at this stuff. I've been looking at the state for so long now. I've been looking at the nature of it, what it does, the outcome of it, what kind of a system is it? Does it
if we're going to pre-crime you, why not post-crime you?
Yeah. And so at this point, I'm just like, I'm not really surprised.
Thanks for the call, Major Payne. I appreciate it. Let's talk to David in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live. David.
Yeah, another episode in How the Stomach Turns. I was going to share another interesting fact. At least I find it interesting because it could happen to you. But Major Payne brought up circumstantial evidence of a manner. And as atrocious as that is, that they don't have to produce the physical evidence, they can just go on something that somebody said you did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the family court will do you one better. They don't even have to, not only do they not have to produce the physical evidence, they don't even have to allege that you did a thing. They only need to insinuate that by something that you did that was, or that they observed that was innocuous, that means that you probably did something else. And let me give you an example. There are many examples, but let me give you one. So the goal is you've divorced and you want to get rid of the other parent. And so, one thing that comes right to mind is you make up a false allegation. He raped his daughter. Well, that's pretty bold, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to soften it up a little bit. So you might want to maybe insinuate something. So you're splitting up and you're passing children back and forth. And because you're not a mature adult, you insist that you exchange children using a third-party service for exchanging children. And then for instance, here's what may work and what did work in my case. The third-party service for exchanging children might make note of that. For instance, let's see, Mr. Olson made a point of changing the baby's diapers during the 2-hour visit. Now that might suggest something, because in the course of changing baby's diapers, what might you see? What might you touch?
Unsanitary things?
Yeah, well, that's an insinuation. There are sexual objects inside of that diaper, and by the fact that you changed that diaper means that you could possibly be interested in those sexual items inside of that diaper. And
so
then what you
this facility takes the side of one of the parents on complete speculation, and then the judge rules against the other parent. Basically.
Yeah, and it's worse than that, too. The state representatives for these children, sometimes it's called caseworkers, or there's some other fancy name for them, they need only suspect something to take children away from either parent. Right? If they just, if something feels off, I felt something was off, Your Honor, and so I removed the children.
Okay.
And that's it. That's all closed. They need.
Yeah. David, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. Yeah, it's sick. The standard of evidence doesn't even exist. There's no requirement as far as, like a criminal court, in order to get a conviction. If you're charged criminally, you have to have, there's no reasonable doubt, right? Like if there's any doubt, then you can't convict that person. But in these other situations,
in family court, it's a preponderance of the evidence is not even necessary.
Yeah,
not even necessary.
Yeah. So number here 603-283-6160. Let's talk about the Milgram experiments.
For those of you who don't know Stanley Milgram, we'll tell you.
I presume he's dead at this point. But
he in the 1960s, I believe he is dead actually, but I'm not 100% on that. This is from BigThink.com. I'll just jump into it. Holding a clipboard.
Yeah, he died in 1984.
Yeah. Holding a clipboard and wearing a lab coat makes you a very powerful person.
That's right.
Or, and I'm vamping here, or appearing on TV with the word doctor in front of your name also makes you a very powerful person.
I believe that came back to haunt Dr. Oz at one point.
Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
Add in a lanyard in addition to the lab coat and a very confident voice, and you're pretty much in Ocean's 11, the movie. Though we believe ourselves to be contrarians, most of us like to obey authority. We answer questions, help with any number of tasks, and obey commands unthinkingly. The vast majority of the time, this is relatively harmless and even a requisite for a functioning society, but it can also lead humanity to very dark places. He references Ash's
I'm not going to agree
here.
with him that it's a requisite for a functioning society.
I don't think so either.
I would not want to live in that society.
There are times when you go about your business mindlessly, but you shouldn't just do that as your standard for sure.
I would rather be in a society of people who think and who criticize and question.
There's a few things that this writer says that I just don't disagree with, or don't agree with. I do disagree with. As we've seen with Ash's experiments on conformity, the post-World War II community was determined to answer how and why the Holocaust took place. So just after the trial of Adolf Eichmann, the American media and public came to see German society as some special kind of monster in just how willing they were to follow orders unthinkingly, at odds with any sense of duality or duty or morality.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Enter Stanley Milgram in 1961.
We'll talk about that coming up here, and of course your thoughts on obedience and so-called authority. 603-283-6160. This kind of stuff is just as important now as it was back then. It is Free Talk Live.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new.
If you'd like to see
real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher with the Week in Review. A British lawmaker has died after being stabbed. Sir David Amess was married with 5 children. A man's been arrested on suspicion of murder. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has spoken of his shock and sadness at the loss of, quote, one of the kindest people in politics. He is the second serving MP to be killed in the past 5 years, following the murder of Joe Cox in 2016. Ollie Barrett reports from London.
Police say they were called to reports of a stabbing at a constituency surgery being held by Conservative MP Sir David Amess. In a statement, police confirm he was treated by emergency services but died at the scene. A 25-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murder and a knife was recovered. Police say they're not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. David Amess was 69 years old and had been an MP in Essex in South East England since 1983. Ollie Barrett, London.
The US will lift travel restrictions for fully vaccinated international travellers, including from more than 24 previously banned countries, on November the 8th. The White House is also easing restrictions on overland border crossings from Canada and Mexico. Our US correspondent Caroline Malone reports.
Fully vaccinated visitors will be able to travel to the United States from November 8th, including those from previously banned countries. The White House says the travellers will have to show proof of both a vaccination and a recent negative COVID test before boarding flights. People travelling by land will not need to provide a negative test. Pandemic restrictions are also being eased on overland crossings from Canada and Mexico. In September, the Biden administration announced it would lift bans on European and other travellers. The White House says the new travel policies are being guided by public health. Caroline Malone, Washington.
India is also relaxing its travel restrictions for foreign tourists amid a decline in daily COVID-19 infections. It will grant tourist visas to passengers arriving on chartered flights. Our correspondent Rebecca Bunden reports from Mumbai.
India's borders have been closed to overseas tourists since March 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Following the relaxations, which come into effect on Friday, India will also offer tourist visas to passengers arriving on commercial flights from the 15th of November. The move is expected to bring some relief to a sector that has been battered by the pandemic. But some doctors are concerned that this could fuel a third wave of infections, which many say is inevitable as the festive season is also underway in the country, prompting many people to travel and gather in crowds. Rebecca Bunden, Mumbai.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything here. The number is 603-283-6160. Live Saturday show. 603-283-6160. Tonight, Ian here.
Pickles Mountaineer.
And the captain.
We're talking about the Milgram Experiments. Very famous experiments. Was he the guy that did the shocks? Was that the shocks? Was that Milgram?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay. Sometimes I get them mixed up. There's a few really classic experiments out there. And they can't reproduce these experiments anymore, sadly, due to ethics considerations.
Supposedly.
Yeah, but they're very, very interesting, and it's all about, somebody sitting in another room that...
pretending to be shocked.
Correct. Is essentially a Confederate. They're working with the study.
Yeah, the experiment involved 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
First, there was the experimenter dressed in a lab coat who is... given who gave instructions and prompts with a clipboard.
Very important.
Who gave instructions and prompts. Then there was an actor who was the learner, and then third there was the participant who thought that they were acting as the teacher in the memory test.
Mm-hmm.
So, unbeknownst to them, this was an experiment.
Correct.
Right. So,
they said it was. Does shocking people help them learn?
The apparent experimental setup was that the learner had to match 2 words together after being taught them, and whenever they got the answer wrong, the teacher had to administer an electric shock. The teachers or participants were shocked as well to let them know what kind of pain the learner would experience. At first,
at a low dose,
the shock was set at 15 volts.
Mm-hmm.
The learner repeatedly made mistakes for each study, and the teacher was told to increase the voltage each time. A tape recorder was played that had the learner apparently making sounds as if in pain. As it went on, the learner would plead and beg for the shocks to stop. The teacher was told to increase the amount of voltage as punishment up to a level that was explicitly described as being fatal.
Yeah, and if the person who was being tested, the teacher, quote unquote, would balk, like, well, I don't think I should keep going, they would the guy with the clipboard
must continue.
Would say
the experiment requires you to continue.
Yeah,
the experiment requires us to continue.
And a shocking, well, if you will, large number of the people that were being tested would continue on to the maximum voltage.
And here we are back at PTSD.
65% of the participants were willing to give a 450 volt shock described as lethal, and all 100% administered a 300 volt shock described as traumatically painful.
Yeah, the description that disturbs me the most about this one is when silence. Like the actor being shocked they'd be like, no, stop, I have a heart condition.
Right.
And then you shock them, and then they just stop responding.
Yep.
No response counts as a wrong response.
And the
experiment must continue.
It should be repeated that this occurred despite the learner begging the participant to stop, as you've pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
In the studies that came after, in a variety of different setups, that 60% number came up again and again. They showed that roughly 2 out of 3 people would be willing to kill someone if told to do it by an authority figure.
I would also like to point out something that is crucial about this. Of those who refused to continue, there was an inordinate number of them that would just start laughing. So, I mean, it's crucial to be aware that the way to dispel this kind of mind control, which it is, this authoritarian mind control, is to laugh at it. When you laugh at it, you stop taking it seriously, you stop becoming a part of their order, and you can start making choices freely.
They hate that, by the way. They hate being laughed at. They hate it when the government gang, they hate it when you don't take them seriously, because they want so much for you to take them seriously and to believe in them and that they're so important.
And I skipped over a little bit of a paragraph here, but I want to point out that this was the World War II, I'll call it culture or society, right? Where Germany bad, America good, kind of, that was the paradigm that permeated the social consciousness.
We could never be those kind of monsters.
And so it was widely thought that the German people would be far more likely to, in these Milgram experiments, to be willing to kill than Americans. It was thought by everybody, including Germans, that, oh no, the American people would never, they're a very small, it's going to be, it's a
liberal
no-brainer.
Democracy.
It's a no-brainer. No, the results were consistent across all nationalities. So
it's a people problem.
It's an authority problem, is what it is. People just go along with authority, perceived authority,
this
for
isn't a
no
cultural
reason.
thing. This is not cultural. This is not genetic, except for the sense that it is part of being human. Like, this is a problem that's in our bones.
Yeah, I mean, obedience and people wanting to have a leader. They want to have a strong person keeping them safe and, telling them what to do. And you can see it in the last 2 years with this COVID thing. All right, line up for your shot.
That's what I was saying in a previous segment, that by and large, this whole COVID thing, if you look at how they've presented Dr. Anthony Fauci, right? He is authority. He is the guy in the lab coat with the lanyards and the clipboard.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody else is going, not everybody, but a percentage of people are going, hey, stop. This is wrong. This is unethical. This is violation of people's rights. And there's Mr. Fauci going, the experiment requires us to continue.
Yep, get another dose.
He keeps going on TV and saying that.
Get your booster.
And he repeats himself, to say, or he changes it a little bit, says something different.
Or says something completely different.
And so in that respect, you're living, I'm talking about society, the United States, the world almost, is living inside of a Milgram experiment right now.
Of course.
Well, and I got to say, like, two of the most entertaining YouTube videos that I've watched recently were of Biden and of Fauci depicted as arguing with each other using only recorded audio of what they've made, of what statements they've made.
Just things that were contradictory.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Nice. That sounds like something I'd enjoy. I missed that one.
Yeah, I saw one also today. Someone posted like a 2-minute long video showing a bunch of, well, first it started with clips of Fauci talking about how effective the vaccines were and all these headlines. 100% effective.
Safe
100%. And then there's headlines 99%, 98, 97%, and then all the way down to like below 50% effectiveness.
Well, and the psychological trick.
Big five.
The psychological trick they played on everybody that really I've not heard anybody talk about. In the beginning of the COVID, we'll call it pandemic for lack of a better term, it was all about the number of people who died.
Yeah, that's over.
And then somewhere along the way, early on in the first month maybe, it changed. Like, they still presented the number, but it didn't say dead, it said cases.
Yeah.
They just switched that one word around, and everybody was just like, oh, look at the number's still climbing.
And funny how they never presented both of these at the same time.
Number go up.
Especially as we went further and further, where we go, oh, so the percentage of people dying from this is like nothing.
What do they call it when they use it in movies, right? They present like the ticking clock or whatever. There's a term for when they insert something like that. It's I'm trying to remember the name. But that's exactly what happened here, right? Like you just said, number go up. Right? So people they didn't fixate on the word that was in the sentence or phrase as it was presented. They just saw the number, and the number kept going up. Like, oh, it must still be getting pretty bad. Like, no, it's not bad at all.
Yeah. Largely reminds me of, on the one hand, the atomic clock. Like if you remember in the Cold War, it was the countdown to nuclear annihilation, and of course the countdown was like it was never more than an hour away to begin with, and it would just get smaller and smaller. It spent all this time at 1 minute to midnight, and we're still here. And on the other hand, are we on orange terror level?
Right.
Like, is orange
what happened to the
worse
terror
than
level?
Green?
Yeah, it just sort of faded to black, if you will.
There's more coming up. You got more about Milgram,
a little bit,
right?
Yeah.
So your comments are certainly welcome on obedience, and I like your point, Captain. This is a big Milgram experiment, a big obedience experiment. And how far will you go? 603-283-6160. What will you be told to do until you finally say you've had enough? 603-283-6160. You can take control of the airways here. Bring up whatever you want. This is Free Talk Live Saturday show. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live Saturday show. Open phones if you want to join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
Biggles Mountaineer.
And the Captain.
All right, so bring up what you want. We're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts, and then more. The Captain, you've got to share on the Milgram Experiments, which, you know, it's a topic that has come around for years here on Free Talk Live. It's an important one that, you know, if you're young, you might not have heard about these things, right?
It's one of the biggest pieces of evidence supporting the cause of freedom or liberty that I've ever come across.
Well, if you look at it from that perspective, although if you look at it from the perspective of a total authoritarian, then you just salivate.
Clearly, mankind is meant for subservience to authority.
It's revered by many, not necessarily for the same thing.
Right. But, it is important for people to know that these things exist, and let's explain a little bit more about it coming up here. But first, we're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts. Douglas is on the line in Tennessee, listening in Chattanooga. Go ahead, Douglas.
Okay, so authority is based upon the willingness for the individual to give the responsibility and morality to someone else. To state that it is easier just based upon an obedience, in my opinion, is false. If you would like to state that the individual is passing the buck, per se, I'll agree. But to say it's just a will to bow to authority is wrong. It's a case of morality, of right and wrong.
Can you rephrase that? I'm not sure I really followed what you were saying.
Should I repeat it?
I don't know. Just try it. Come at me again. Captain, did you follow that?
I think what he's saying is something that the article will touch on, and that is to say that these people who are doing the shocking in these Milgram experiments, they would often look back at the lab coat guy, the clipboard guy, like, hey, I feel like something's wrong here. And he would somehow absolve them. Like, don't worry, we take responsibility for all this. The experiment requires you to continue. And then they would continue because the authority figure gave them absolution of any, morality or immorality they might have been feeling, or unethical treatment of this other person that they might have been feeling. They're like, oh, no, it's okay. We're taking the responsibility. The experiment requires us to continue. And they would go ahead and continue.
So it's not that they want to obey, it's that they want to avoid responsibility, and this happens to be a way of doing that.
I think that's what Douglas was getting at.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, it's based on good and evil. It's a morality aspect. If somebody tells you to do something and you know it's wrong, and you follow along with the game, you're dissolving yourself of the responsibility of doing something wrong.
Well, you don't ever get to do that. Okay, just because a guy in a lab coat tells you all is forgiven, we will take responsibility. That doesn't mean you lose responsibility. And they proved that in Nuremberg, by the way,
right?
Illegally.
I didn't state that though.
Okay, I'm not real clear what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not. I think he's saying it's not that works. It's just that's what people try
I'd like
to do.
him to say it, though.
Let him say it. Go ahead,
what
Douglas.
I'm saying is the terminology in which you described it is not accurate. The moral, it's good and evil, and people dissolve themselves of the right decision because they diffuse themselves from the responsibility of the action in which they are taking. Everybody can do that.
You mean in their own mind they're doing that, but the reality is they're not, disconnected from it.
No. On an individual basis, I can't punch someone in the face unless you're a freaking sociopath or a psychopath.
Or a cop.
That's
but
fine.
we
Whatever.
repeat
Say
ourselves.
what you want to.
We recognize that it's wrong for you to just walk up to some stranger and punch him in the face. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's anecdotal. But if somebody dissolves you of that responsibility, in your mind, it would make you feel like it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no.
I think what he's pointing out is that in your mind, when you are no longer responsible for making moral choices, is what makes you able to do these things.
Yes, correct. You're exactly. The articulation of what was said, that's what I disagree with. I don't agree with the premise of the argument. I agree with the words that were said prior to this.
Okay.
That's why I had to call in.
All right, Douglas, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. It did sound like you'd interpreted him correctly, Captain.
I think we're kind of saying the same thing. I might not be using the exact correct language.
People are using this as an excuse, saying, oh, well, they said I had to keep going, so therefore I had to keep going. I couldn't make my own choice. Well, yeah, you could at any point.
As Larkin Rose wrote in The Greatest Superstition, I believe is the name of his book.
Yeah, which is all about the idea of authority.
Right.
As being false.
It's the people have the mental ability to absolve themselves of immoral actions if it's part of groupthink, right? So it's okay for me to go overseas and murder a bunch of brown people I've never met because I'm doing it as part of this organization known as the United States military, and they're taking responsibility for all of these people that I have killed because I'm part of their organization, and they say it's the right thing to do, and I believe them. They hallucinate the ability to remove themselves, to absolve themselves, or have the group absolve them of any responsibility for the moral action.
And we largely get trained for this. So, I mean, if I'm driving 80 in a 55 mile an hour zone, I'm fine as long as I'm with, 50 other cars also driving 80 on that road.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's part of how we get trained to believe that that's acceptable, that, well, as long as I'm with this group that's doing these terrible things.
One thing I'd like to comment on, the caller...
That's also mob mentality.
Yes.
Yes. The caller laid out his definition or a definition of authority, and it's always important to point out when talking about things like the Milgram Experiments that there are two common, we'll call them definitions of authority. One is, do what I say or else. Right? And by or else, I mean, throw you in a cage, kidnap you, kill you, whatever, right? Some violence is going to happen. That people consider that authority. But there's a much more important and a much better separate definition of authority that everybody needs to become far more acquainted with, and that is when you're the expert at something. When you've done something for so long that your community at large considers you the authority on that subject.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem here, is that people lack the confidence in their own ability to decide moral questions. And since they don't have the, in their own minds, they don't have the ability to effectively decide moral questions, so they go to a figure of authority in the sense of they believe that, well, I mean, you are in this elevated position.
Tell me, priest.
Right. You're clearly a doctor, so you have more knowledge. Therefore, tell me, priest, what is the good thing and the evil thing in this situation?
Right. And it's that reliance on somebody else to tell you what is evil and what is not that I think human beings could use to get over real quick.
Yeah.
Amen.
Well, we're going to continue here. Of course, your calls and thoughts are welcome. Remember, 603-283-6160. Was that pretty much the story? Was there more you wanted to add?
There's a bit in here, but, I mean, we've pretty much covered the Milgram Experiments and how they pertain. This guy he brings up a couple of questions about the details of the experiments and, what he didn't like about it. And does it really mean what we think it does? But I think we've covered all of it, really.
Yeah, I mean, it clearly means, there's obviously been skepticism of the studies, and of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, ethics rules apparently prohibit this from actually being reproduced, which is sad because it would be interesting to continue, doing studies like this.
Well, their closing line says, one silver lining to Milgram and his experiments is how it can inoculate us against such drone-like behavior. We've seen a lot of that recently. It can help us to resist. Simply knowing how far we can be manipulated helps us to say no.
Yeah, and then there are the other conformity studies that have been done and can continue to be done because they're not unethical, like the ones where they've got a group of people sitting in a room, and then all of the people in the room are Confederates, meaning they're with the study. The person who's being tested is brought into the room, and then there's like a noise that goes off, and people in the room stand up, and the person's like, looking around, what's going on. The question is, how many of the people will actually stand up in that situation? And a surprising number of them do. Now, there's some details and some variants
where it's like which line is longer, and they will frequently go with the popular response.
That's
or,
right.
The smoke-filled room
on something that's obviously not longer, right? Like they look at these two different lines on a piece of paper, and everybody around the room the Confederates say. They point to the shorter line and they say that's the longer line, and then the last person is the only one who's not with the study, and then really the question is, what will they say? And a lot of them, they point to the shorter line to go along with the group.
The smoke-filled room, where a room continuously fills with smoke, but since no one else is responding to it, they don't either.
There is video of the Milgram Experiments online. Go and search out Milgram Experiments and watch the video yourself.
Yep, more coming up here. Of course, your thoughts are welcome. Peakless Mountaineer is going to tell us about the oligarchic empire and why it should give us hope. That's on the way here, and your calls and thoughts are welcome about whatever's on your mind. You can take control of the airwaves. Hour 3 is coming up on Free Talk Live.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher with the Week in Review. A British lawmaker has died after being stabbed. Sir David Amess was married with 5 children. A man's been arrested on suspicion of murder. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has spoken of his shock and sadness at the loss of, quote, one of the kindest people in politics. He is the second serving MP to be killed in the past 5 years, following the murder of Joe Cox in 2016. Ollie Barrett reports from London.
Police say they were called to reports of a stabbing at a constituency surgery being held by Conservative MP Sir David Amess. In a statement, police confirm he was treated by emergency services but died at the scene. A 25-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murder and a knife was recovered. Police say they're not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. David Amess was 69 years old and had been an MP in Essex in southeast England since 1983. Ollie Barrett, London.
The US will lift travel restrictions for fully vaccinated international travellers, including from more than 24 previously banned countries, on November the 8th. The White House is also easing restrictions on overland border crossings from Canada and Mexico. Our US correspondent Caroline Malone reports.
Fully vaccinated visitors will be able to travel to the United States from November 8th. Including those from previously banned countries. The White House says the travellers will have to show proof of both a vaccination and a recent negative COVID test before boarding flights. People travelling by land will not need to provide a negative test. Pandemic restrictions are also being eased on overland crossings from Canada and Mexico. In September, the Biden administration announced it would lift bans on European and other travellers. The White House says the new travel policies are being guided by public health. Caroline Malone, Washington.
India is also relaxing its travel restrictions for foreign tourists amid a decline in daily COVID-19 infections. It will grant tourist visas to passengers arriving on chartered flights. Our correspondent Rebecca Bunden reports from Mumbai.
India will also offer tourist visas to passengers arriving on commercial flights from the 15th of November. The move is expected to bring some relief to a sector that has been battered by the pandemic. But some doctors are concerned that this could fuel a third wave of infections, which many say is inevitable as the festive season is also underway in the country, prompting many people to travel and gather in crowds. Rebecca Bunzen, Mumbai.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. The US government has donated over 3.5 million doses of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine to Nigeria. The donation came through COVAX, the global initiative ensuring equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. Our Nigeria correspondent Tessem Akende reports.
The U.S. mission in Nigeria in a statement says the vaccines arrived to the country on Thursday, 14th October. This brings the number of vaccine donations to the country to over 7.5 million. Only about 2% of Nigeria's population has so far been fully vaccinated against the disease from a planned 40% before the end of 2021. The U.S. believes the vaccines are the best tools to ending the pandemic and has pledged to purchase and donate 1.1 billion vaccine doses worldwide. It has so far delivered more than 180 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to more than 100 countries across the world. Tessem Akende, Jos.
The World Health Organization has announced the formation of a new scientific advisory group to try to figure out where and how the coronavirus originated. The group includes scientists from China, which has faced international scrutiny over its cooperation with previous efforts. Here's our US correspondent, Ira Spitzer.
The WHO says the Scientific Advisory Group for the Origins on Novel Pathogens will include scientists from 26 countries, including the US and China. The first known cases of the virus were discovered in the Chinese city of Wuhan in December of 2019. Earlier this year, a WHO team concluded that the virus had likely originated from bats, but that more research was needed. However, officials at the WHO later indicated that the Chinese government didn't provide them unrestricted access to data from the initial days of the outbreak or to a lab which has come under scrutiny. Beijing has rejected this, saying that it considers the investigation into the virus's possible origins in China to be complete.
I'm Kate Fisher in Washington, and that was the Week in Review.
Tomorrow's my big day. I'm going to go in for surgery, and hopefully you'll come along. Now, I do have to admit that I am in a bit of pain, so I'm really looking forward to this procedure. I think we're both going to find out that having surgery just isn't as scary as it sounds.
We're covering our own Jim Haggerty's kidney stone removal surgery, and his surgery is now just minutes away. So, Dr. Atka, tell us what precautions we would take to prevent us from getting kidney stones.
Always stay hydrated. Water helps the kidneys break the stuff down.
Hear that, Jim? More water.
What?
More water. Maybe we should replace your coffee.
Please go away. Please. Ow, no.
That's a camera they're going to use to film the whole surgery from inside Jim's body,
yes, that's going to be pushed into Jim's urethra as well. Now, normally they wouldn't do this. This is purely for the benefit of us watching it on TV.
All right, stick with us because first he's going to pop into the children's ward to cheer up some youngsters suffering from terminal illnesses.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything here as we kick off the third hour of the program. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about obedience to so-called authority, which the whole idea of authority is just a scam.
Well, no. Well, hold on. Let me push back on you. So,
yeah, there's legitimate authority, again, like we talked about, where somebody is like an expert in their field or well-known or even respected as a decision maker. When it comes to like arbitration, sometimes communities used to rely on, like the wisest man in town to like help arbitrate problems and that kind of a thing. And so in that respect, that's legitimate authority as opposed to the overt, violent-oriented authority that everybody thinks
thanks
about.
for clarifying
I am a representative of the people, and therefore I will beat you if you don't give me money.
Yeah, right. Thank you for that. So I guess we should disclaim political authority is BS. But, if there's somebody that you've given sort of the keys to, okay, I believe in this person, they've, represented themselves as somebody who knows a thing, I trust what they have to say, then that is a different type of more of a voluntary
legitimate
authority.
Yeah, and voluntary.
So you can comment on all that if you want to. You can also bring up anything you want. Plus, you've got a story, Peakless Mountaineer, we're going to get into about the oligarchic empire and why it should give us hope. And I'm very curious.
Well, why it should give us hope that they've really ramped up the propaganda.
We'll get into that coming in here in just a moment. But first, to your phone calls and thoughts. John is first up, listening to WTNY in Watertown, New York. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so this is the first time I've heard this show.
Wow, welcome.
I'm from Boston. I heard your area code. Obviously, you guys are from New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm calling from Fort Drum, New York. I don't know who it was that made the comment about, being able to absolve yourself of any immorality by going overseas and murdering a bunch of brown people if you do it on behalf of an organization known as the United States military. But it was the same person who made the comment about you can punch someone in the face if you're a cop, to the last caller that you had on. Now, I am not a police officer. I'm an infantryman. I've been in the military for 17 years, and I've been to combat 5 times.
Mm-hmm. Sorry to hear that.
I'm not.
Why? Do you like being in combat?
Again, I grew up in Boston, or just outside
Sorry to hear
Boston. That. Yeah, well, I kind of am too, right? But Boston, Massachusetts is the birthplace of this country. Okay, and when I was a kid growing up, I was in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, and I went to all the reenactments at the Old North Bridge and, all this Revolutionary War history. I've hiked the Isaac Davis Trail a bunch of times. I've walked, Paul Revere's ride, through the city. I chose to do what I do because if there weren't people before me willing to do it, where would we be?
What do you do?
I'm an infantryman in the United States Army.
So does that mean you take orders blindly from politicians and, kill people?
No. Okay, first off, the United States Armed Forces are governed by the Geneva Conventions. All right? There is the laws of armed conflict and the rules of engagement. Okay? I have never once followed an order blindly that was immoral.
How do you know?
I have a risk. Excuse me?
How do you know?
How do I know what?
That you've never followed an order blindly.
I said I have never once followed an order blindly that was immoral. I have a responsibility. I am bound by regulation. If I am given an unlawful order, I have a responsibility.
So have you ever killed an innocent person?
Order. No.
You're certain of this?
I am 100% certain of this.
How?
What do you mean how?
I mean how?
Have you ever been to combat?
No.
So why are you sitting there pretending like you know what,
That's exactly how I know that I've never murdered an innocent person, is I don't kill people. So that makes it really easy to know that I haven't killed anyone innocent.
What makes it moral to follow the orders of politicians and go into foreign lands and kill people, whether you think they're innocent or not?
Look, it's not about me following orders of politicians. It's about me protecting people like you.
Who do you think directs your generals?
Okay, first off, I'm not going to get into this. All right, I cannot.
I mean, this is pretty straightforward chain of command stuff, right?
Yes and no. Okay, yes and no. Because it doesn't matter how high the order comes down from. If it is an unlawful order, I have a responsibility not to follow.
Have you ever not followed an order that you considered unlawful?
I have.
Give me an example. What is it? What was it?
I'm not going to give you an example. My experiences in combat are my experiences. They're none of your business.
Okay. Well, you called into this radio show to defend being in the military and following orders from politicians, which, whether you want to admit it or not, that's what you do.
Okay. So let me ask you.
And I didn't ask you for your protection. Okay, I don't need your protection. I live in New Hampshire. We've got a bunch of people who love freedom here that are well armed, and they're not afraid to use those arms. So we don't need the military.
I'm not attacking you. I am not attacking you. So don't.
Well, you said you're out there protecting me, and I'm telling you, you're not. In fact, you're putting people here in this place in greater danger by going over with this military and killing people all around the world. Don't you think that pisses people off?
Excuse me?
Did you hear what I said?
No.
I said, don't you think it would upset some people if the U.S. military, following quote-unquote lawful orders, goes into somebody else's land somewhere else in the world and bombs it and or shoots people to death? Don't you think that's going to piss people off?
Okay, why are you so against the military?
I'm against crazy, violent acts anywhere on the planet by any military, and so your military ain't no better.
So are you against the military of World War II?
I'm against any coercion, dude. I'm all in favor of self-defense. Hey, man, pick up whatever weapon you want to defend yourself and your family on your own homeland or home ground or whatever, but going around killing people around the world, count me out. I'm not interested in funding it. I'm not interested in being a part of it at all.
And since you bring it up, hold on. You asked about World War II, and it's a very vital piece of information that if America had not, well, the American government hadn't interfered in World War I, there would have been no World War II.
That's probably true.
There is a valid argument there.
Yep.
Okay. But regardless, what's done is done. It happened, right?
That's true. That doesn't mean that it needs to keep happening.
Here we are. All right, with Hitler rising.
We're here with Hitler?
Okay.
He's back! Zombie Hitler!
Special guest tonight on Free Talk Live.
Okay, I'm going back. All right, back to the military. Zombie Hitler. Okay, that's an exception.
So we're just having some fun here.
So now Hitler rises to power and just starts committing genocide. You think that the United States military should not have involved themselves?
Yeah, because the United States is supposed to be non-interventionist. The U.S. wasn't even supposed to have a standing army except in very special occasions where it was supposed to be called together. You can check the Constitution; it's there. But yet, nonetheless, post World War I, they got very interventionist and they got in other people's business. And I don't think that means that an individual couldn't help. Like if you felt like you wanted to go over and fight with the French military, or form some sort of team of mercenaries and go over and fight Hitler. By all means, do whatever you want with your life and your money, and maybe you can even raise a bunch of money to do something like that voluntarily.
And it wouldn't hurt if Americans hadn't sold him the war machine.
There's a whole lot about, like you pointed out, Peakless, that guy rose to power because of the vacuum.
Bush. Look that one up, fellas.
That was created by World War I and the U.S. involvement there. John, good call. Appreciate hearing from you. Feel free to call us anytime. We've been on the air there for years on that station, so hopefully you'll find us again. More coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. UCI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
If you're looking for work, the person you are applying to may be even more nervous than you are. And the way things are now, your references have never been more important. Here are 3 tips. First, know that employers are checking. Every hire is under the microscope these days. Second, they won't just be checking references you provide. Figure that all of your ex-employers will get a call and be asked, would you hire him or her again? Third, assume you will be Googled. So before you apply, remove all those party animal photos from your Facebook page. Even if you're not in the job market, effective communication skills have never been more important, with money and attention so scarce now. For more tips for job seekers and getting better results in all your day-to-day communication, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything right here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can also, if for whatever reason you want to, watch us on the internet. We've got an Odyssey stream. We had a bunch of other streams too, but they like to take us down for various different community violations or whatever, because we say what we want for the most part here within FCC guidelines, which still means we can have our opinions on.
Isn't that
anything.
amazing though? That like here we are, a nationally syndicated talk radio program following the FCC guidelines and still getting canceled.
Too extreme for the internet
on social media.
That's pretty sad, actually. Yeah. The internet used to be this like free place, and now the FCC's more free than the internet is.
You said
it's crazy. No, you pointed that out. That's actually a really interesting observation.
No more Wild West for you.
Yeah. So, but Odyssey is the exception.
We haven't been kicked off of Odyssey?
No,
because
why not?
Well, you got to. I always have to address that because Odyssey itself could kick you off, and the reason why Odyssey could do that is because they are a platform. But they're based on a protocol, and Odyssey is based on what's called the Library Protocol, lbry.com. You can go and learn more about it. But it is an uncensorable...
Apologies for the imprecise speech. We're not kicked off of Library yet because
that is impossible. Yeah, Library is decentralized. It's blockchain based, and it's uncensorable, meaning that there's no administrator at library who can say thou shalt not, because they can't. They can't control who uploads content to it. They can't delete the content that is uploaded to it. So it's pretty amazing technology. That's what Odyssey is based on, but Odyssey being a platform can still filter out things because they're just letting you see basically certain things that are on library. And so, for instance, library, like I said, they can't control anything. If you upload a porn clip to library, they can't do anything about it. Odyssey, on the other hand, doesn't want porn on their platform because they're trying to compete with YouTube, and they want families and blah blah blah. So there's a few things that aren't allowed on Odyssey, but we're allowed on Odyssey, and we even had our topless days with the ladies doing the topless show, and that was not banned from Odyssey, whereas that would be banned from every other video streaming platform out there. All Odyssey asked was that we didn't put like an uncensored image.
Right.
So like the little teaser image, the thumbnail. That was the only thing they asked, and okay, fine.
Fair enough.
No problem. So check them out. You can subscribe to our channel there over at video.freetalklive.com. And if you've got a YouTube channel and you're concerned, as you should be, that you might get deleted at some point, you might get some strikes against the channel leading to your inevitable demise on that platform, start planning to migrate away from that now and join the Odyssey platform. They make it super easy to basically like ingest all of your YouTube videos. So the first time you join Odyssey, there's like a little checkbox. Hey, I'm a YouTube creator and I want to join the YouTube partner program. And then you literally, within, I don't know, a minute or two, you link up your YouTube account, and then the background, whatever robot they have at Odyssey, just starts ingesting all the history of your entire channel. All the videos get copied over to the Odyssey platform, and then any new videos you upload to YouTube also get copied over. And then if YouTube deletes one of your videos, guess where it still is? It's still on Odyssey. So check it out. Video.freetalklive.com will take you right to our channel there as we go to your phone calls and thoughts. TK Beebs is on the line in New York. You're on Free Talk Live, TK.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
What's on your mind?
Well, I heard the last phone call with that other guy from Fort Drum. So my question to you guys would be: Are you currently manufacturing consent?
Manufacturing consent. What does that mean?
No.
You guys sit here and you go off on a man that served overseas, and yet you can't understand what manufacturing consent is.
I'm asking you to clarify what that means.
You go off on this man who had to serve overseas, man. Like you can't.
Well, he didn't have to. He could have chosen not to join, and he could have chosen not to go. So he didn't at any point have to do any of the things he did.
Let me put it to you this way, man. Have you ever grown up in a ghetto?
Thankfully, no.
Well, when you do that and you got people threatening your lives every day, threatening for scarcity resources, it's not so much as blindly following, but more of a collective systematic thing that is existing over time.
Okay, I'm not sure what you're trying to say.
I grew up poor. I had the government cheese. What's your point?
My point is, you got to do what you got to do. And then, unfortunately, you got some people who are more unfortunate than others got to do things that you don't want. I got to do. You don't want to do. You want to believe that. You want to stay here, man. Like that.
So when you are abused, you have to abuse others.
I'm sorry?
So when you are abused, you have to abuse others? There are no options other than abusing or threatening people if you live in a dangerous environment?
Let me tell you this, man. Every day I would go up to you, and I would just smack you right in the face.
No, I don't think you would.
It's a good way to get shot.
Yeah, I don't think you would. I mean, maybe you live in New York where you can do that to people, but
see now when you guys say you smack, you shoot me. You're jumbling up your own logic, bruh.
How so?
No, I don't think so.
Self-defense is always warranted.
Okay, whoa. So if it was between me or you would kill me, right? To spare your life.
If you were trying to kill me. But if you weren't harming me in any way, shape, or form, I would do nothing.
At a point, man, like if you're out in combat and it's you or them. And I don't know if you want the Taliban to win. I don't know if you want Al Qaeda to win.
You mean the government supported Al Qaeda, the U.S. government supported groups, the Taliban, where the U.S. government gave them weapons,
not to mention created.
This is what it goes back to earlier, the collective systematic thing. So it all goes around the war in Iraq even the war in Vietnam, or even the U.S. Civil War.
All of them were unnecessary. Every single one of them completely unnecessary. Do you support all those wars?
No, I don't support all those wars. But
then we're on the same page on that.
At a point, would you, if one serves violence over the other, like if the Confederates won the Civil War because we were pacifists, we didn't want to kill anybody.
No. So you misunderstand. We are not pacifists here. We believe in the non-aggression principle, which means we have every right to self-defense.
So the guy was talking about with World War II, Pearl Harbor, for example, we were bombed first.
You do know about the McCollum Memo, right?
The McCollum Memo.
Yeah, it was where the U.S. government actually wanted to essentially gin up conflict with the Japanese. They wanted the Japanese government to bomb something of theirs. They specifically
and
were
frankly,
manipulating that.
A blockade is an act of war.
Which they did to the Japanese people. They blockaded them.
Yeah, if I am starving you, that is a violent act.
Yeah, so there was a whole lot of that going on, and thank you for the call tonight, TK Beebs. But if you just believe the government propaganda that they have in their government classrooms, they say, oh, where'd that attack come from? Pearl Harbor, what a horrible... It was horrible, no doubt about it, but they wanted that to happen so they would have an excuse to rally the American people into yet another completely unnecessary conflict.
Oh, we didn't do anything to them, and then they just swung right at us.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Same thing happened in Vietnam.
That's right. Yeah, that was a setup, too.
Oh, yeah,
Gulf
America
of Tonkin.
was there years before. Yep. And Gulf of Tonkin didn't even happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, didn't even happen.
Well, they certainly got the American people to believe that it did.
Mm-hmm. And used it as a premise for war.
Anyone remember Yellow Cake? From the that was weapons of mass destruction.
Oh yeah.
The Iraq War. That was the whole reason for that too. Total BS. We're coming up here. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher with the Week in Review. A British lawmaker has died after being stabbed. Sir David Amess was married with 5 children. A man's been arrested on suspicion of murder. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has spoken of his shock and sadness at the loss of, quote, one of the kindest people in politics. He is the second serving MP to be killed in the past 5 years, following the murder of Joe Cox in 2016. Ollie Barrett reports from London.
Police say they were called to reports of a stabbing at a constituency surgery being held by Conservative MP Sir David Amess. In a statement, police confirm he was treated by emergency services but died at the scene. A 25-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murder and a knife was recovered. Police say they're not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. David Amess was 69 years old and had been an MP in Essex in South East England since 1983. Ollie Barrett, London.
The US will lift travel restrictions for fully vaccinated international travellers, including from more than 24 previously banned countries, on November the 8th. The White House is also easing restrictions on overland border crossings from Canada and Mexico. Our US correspondent Caroline Malone reports.
Fully vaccinated visitors will be able to travel to the United States from November 8th. Including those from previously banned countries. The White House says the travellers will have to show proof of both a vaccination and a recent negative COVID test before boarding flights. People travelling by land will not need to provide a negative test. Pandemic restrictions are also being eased on overland crossings from Canada and Mexico. In September, the Biden administration announced it would lift bans on European and other travelers. The White House says the new travel policies are being guided by public health. Caroline Malone, Washington.
India is also relaxing its travel restrictions for foreign tourists amid a decline in daily COVID-19 infections. It will grant tourist visas to passengers arriving on chartered flights. Our correspondent Rebecca Bunden reports from Mumbai.
India's borders have been closed to overseas tourists since March 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Following the relaxations, which come into effect on Friday, India will also offer tourist visas to passengers arriving on commercial flights from the 15th of November. The move is expected to bring some relief to a sector that has been battered by the pandemic. But some doctors are concerned that this could fuel a third wave of infections, which many say is inevitable as the festive season is also underway in the country, prompting many people to travel and gather in crowds. Rebecca Bunden, Mumbai.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want. Here, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. A conversation about obedience to so-called authority has turned into a conversation about the military, curiously. Which you can bring up anything here with you tonight, by the way. It's Ian.
Manufacturing dissent.
And the Reverend Captain Kickass.
We're going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts. And
how am I supposed to follow that, man?
And
Poorly.
then manufacturing consent or dissent, we'll be talking about the oligarchic empire. I still want to get to that if we can get the chance, but to your phone calls and thoughts first. We go to Scott. He's in California. You're on Free Talk Live, Scott.
Hi. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank
Welcome.
you.
Thanks for being here. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, for one, I've listened to you guys for years, and I respect everything you do, and
Thanks.
I appreciate it. And I 99.9% agree with everything you say.
Great. Let's talk about that point one. Go ahead.
Yeah. The point one is trying to be an ambassador to people. I was just at a bar recently today with politics and religion coming up.
Okay.
And people get fired up. And I've noticed, nothing against you guys. I miss Mark, too, by the way, and your verbatim that you guys used to have. And I hope he's living happily on an island somewhere or doing well himself.
He's doing all right. He says hello to all the listeners.
I think he's in Switzerland right now for the conference that's going on there, the Liberty in Our Lifetime conference. That was today, and he was supposed to be speaking there.
He's a busy dude.
So, yeah, and then I don't know where he's going after that because I'm not allowed to talk to him due to some insane bail conditions. But anyway, go ahead with your point.
Oh. Yeah, okay, yeah, I agree. Well, like I said, I completely agree with you guys. There's years and years I didn't pay taxes, do any of it, and
Nice.
I conformed a little bit here and there. That's maybe the 0.1%. But I do believe in a certain sort of tact, and like the previous callers had, my one, constructive criticism would be that sometimes people get a little bit mocked on the phone or a little bit, because people get convicted in their beliefs. And, it's hard to get through to people when they get fired up, and especially if they get mocked a little bit, it's difficult. And, I'm no expert in this by any means, but I've been in customer service enough in life to know that, people don't like getting laughed at or made fun of, because I think once that happens, their door is closed to reach out to them.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you on that point, and I think persuasion is a really important thing. I will say this. I think you're referencing the caller earlier, the military guy that was...
Are you talking about my zombie Hitler comments?
I think just generally the whole call is what he was referring to.
Because, he's getting into mythology instead of actually dealing with our arguments. So, at that point, I think it's absurd.
Well, just overall, I just want to make a comment about this, and that is, we do a radio show. And a radio show is for entertainment purposes for the most part. Like, it's our job to entertain an audience, so hopefully they'll continue listening.
And educate if we can.
And education is nice. It's ultimately a good idea. But you have to understand that when you have a foil on the air, somebody who is not going to likely be persuaded. There have been times where we have persuaded successfully people, but usually that doesn't happen in the moment. It might happen later on when they've got a chance to really kind of consider what's happening. Anytime you get into a discussion, whether it's sitting at a bar or anywhere else, you can't realistically believe you're going to get them to come to you and say, "My God, I've waited my entire life to have someone tell me this. Thank you so much. Your compassion and your goodness has won me over." Usually it's going to be some time. Usually they have to encounter more than one freedom lover. And I think that with most callers who we can have, or with whom we can have a calm conversation, looking at an issue, asking tough questions from both sides, that's good, and we can move somebody in a certain direction. We have done that, but with callers that are a little more hostile, the callers that know that they're right about absolutely everything and they want to have a fight. Well, if they want to bring a fight, we'll have an on-air spat with them, and it can be very entertaining. But I do admit it is not likely to persuade that person, that individual that we're dealing with. And while I may have some sadness in my heart because of that, ultimately I understand that we are not going to persuade everyone. That there are people out there who absolutely are authoritarians to the core. Whether they want to follow the orders of some quote-unquote leader or they want to be that authoritarian dictator, these people will never come on board with the ideas of liberty. And you know what? That's fine. Yeah. I don't have to convince everybody. All we have to do to have freedom in our lifetime is convince enough people. And that could just be 5%, 10%. I mean, it doesn't have to even be close to a majority.
And for the listeners out there, like it or not, the caller brought up triage, right? Like it or not, there's a war on for your personal freedoms, for your liberties. We're in the middle of it right now. And so there was, I don't know, the last decade or so, I was like, okay, triage, you into freedom? No, not okay, you're out of here. Are you into freedom? Yes, you okay, great. Hey, come on, let's have a conversation and that kind of a thing. I think the time for triage has come to an end at this point on the planet, the way things are going and how authoritarian and dystopian life has gotten all around the globe. So I think that we're beyond triage at this point. Either you already have the ideas of freedom in your mind and in your heart and you're coming with us, or you don't and you're not.
Well, and one of the things that I'd like to point out, I mean, he brings up Hitler. And that's exactly the kind of problem that we're trying to avoid right now.
The previous caller, you mean.
Yeah, I mean, we are headed in that direction. Right now, we are at the point of the gold star on your jacket in the form of our vaccine passports.
Oh, no, now, it's not that.
It'll be a minute before we get to the gas chambers.
No, they don't have a gold star.
They are turning the terrorism legal system and enforcement system on every free person in America.
It's different, though, Peakless. It's not a gold star. Now they've got a yellow insignia of some sort. I think it was in the UK. This was in the news recently. But it's only for the vaccinated. So they're not putting gold stars on the bad people. It's the good people that are getting the gold stars now.
Just
so it's totally,
totally different. Sorry. Star-bellied sneeches. Gotcha. Okay. They're the good ones.
I'm sorry. That doesn't single people out in any way, shape, or form.
Scott, your thoughts on all that?
Well, I completely agree. That the bar I just left. Once politics or religion comes up, everyone has convictions. And so it's really difficult to have an actual constructive.
I commend you for going to for having that conversation at the bar, because it's the most difficult venue when people are drinking.
I just want to add one more category to that: sports teams. Sports teams, man, and it's one of the things, you go into this, you have picked, or it has been picked for you, what your religion is, what your politics are, and what your sports team is. You go in already knowing. And there's no discussion that's going to change that in 99.99999% of situations.
Scott, thanks for the call tonight, man. I do appreciate the feedback, and I appreciate where you're coming from. In fact, there was a time when I really believed that, most people are libertarians. They just don't know it yet. Because I thought that a lot of people, they want themselves to be free, and they just don't understand the whole idea of, hey, if you want yourself to be free, you got to allow somebody else to be free as well.
And you might be right about people when they're not scared. When people aren't scared, most of them are kind of libertarian.
They can be more rational.
I don't know about you guys, but every caller that we've ever, I want them to be free.
Yeah, sure, me too.
I do. I genuinely desire
but they
for
don't
them
all want
to be
it.
free. No, they don't.
And I've come to the point where I'm okay with that. You know, we're not going to be able to save everybody, and I never thought that was possible. But now I'm more okay with just, hey, look, you guys that are like us, get over here, get together as quickly as you can. If you're a freedom-loving person, start making plans to move to New Hampshire. We're seeing more people coming in here in like 1 week than I've seen in some years in New Hampshire.
People know it's getting bad.
It's getting serious out there, and people are finally taking it seriously, and they're doing something about it. That's what it takes, not just talking anymore.
It's getting bad out there, but it's getting good in here.
It seems like it.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like it.
Having our own independent market where we can trade with each other freely is just so beautiful.
There's more coming up here. If we got time, we're going to get you on the air with us. If you're on the line right now at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. But yeah, the time for talking, that's pretty much done. You got to take action now to save yourself.
Free Talk Live.
Our education system is frankly government-run, government-funded, and we're dumbed down.
You could go down the laundry list of the different things that people would admit that the government did wrong or botched up or cost way too much, and it still doesn't have any effect on them. They still just bounce right back and say, well, we need government to do all these things. Well, yes, they make some mistakes. Yes, they spend billions of dollars too much. Sure, they kill innocent people around the world, but we need them.
We have to have them do these things.
I find it quite amazing that, they say the first thing they seem to do is, turn to government. They've got the solution somehow.
Yep.
Goodness knows they
That's
haven't.
what they've been programmed to do by the government schools.
Exactly. Brainwashed. Absolutely brainwashed. And they're so dumb about it, they believe it's the case. However, you then ask the next question, if you dare to, is you say, would you trust any politicians? And the first answer is no way.
Right.
Free Talk Live. 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can't do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring Simon to the rally.
Walk with me.
Well, I'm comfortable here, actually.
Whoa.
Hey.
Who do you think you are?
Excuse me.
There is no video or audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't going to make it.
Wait a minute.
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me?
Because you scared me.
What am I being detained for? You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this?
Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. The LRN.FM's social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Join us here if you want. If not, sit back and hopefully enjoy the show.
Sit right back and you'll hear it. Oh, wait, no, we did get
that was last week.
Sorry, my bad.
603-283-6160. Tonight it's Ian,
Beakless Mountaineer,
and the Captain.
We are going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts here in moments. Also, want to make sure you know about our social media site, because the big tech companies out there, the Facebooks and the Twitters of the world, if they want to get rid of you, they're just going to get rid of you. Sometimes they don't even give you a warning. It's sometimes you try to log in and it says you're gone and you're not allowed to come back because you said something we didn't like. Well, you don't have that problem when it comes to social.freetalklive.com, unless, of course, you said something we didn't like. But we are way more tolerant than these other people.
Oh, by far. Dave Chappelle has gotten a lot of flack for his most recent special, which I've seen.
He has. Yeah, it was funny.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I've been a fan of his forever. But he said Twitter is not even a real place.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's right.
I love it.
That's
I love
right.
it. Yeah, some people take this stuff way too seriously, but we don't. So head on over to our social media site. It's social.freetalklive.com. It's a Mastodon site, which means it is open source. It's self-hosted. It's federated, as they call it, so it's connected to the other Mastodon sites, and there's thousands of them out there. So if you are already on Mastodon, you can follow us. You don't even have to join our server. If you join our server, you can follow other people on other Mastodon servers. It's a pretty cool system, and it works great.
And be prepared to be shocked if you've never experienced real freedom on social media. Because if you're just on Facebook or just on Twitter or the major ones, you might be shocked at what people speaking freely with a bunch of other people turns out to look like.
Right. There's no warnings at the bottom of any post about, fact checkers say blah, blah, blah. Oh, this is medical misinformation or whatever other garbage that these big corporations are toting water for the government for. We're going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts, though. First up, we got Kenneth. He's on the line listening to Delaware's WDOV in Dover. Go ahead, Kenneth.
Oh boy, I'd love to hear your show, gentlemen. Hey, by
Thanks.
the way, you mentioned the thing how we boycotted Japan, started the war or something.
Yeah, it was a blockade.
Blockade
against.
Right. Well, we already had their codes. I mean, just go look at the Battle of Midway. How about the one where
had decrypted their communication? You mean?
Right.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right.
Well, how about the one where they said the Germans tried to get the Mexicans to attack us? Another false flag. What was that? Second World War, First World War?
The Mexicans?
But anyhow, yeah, they tried to get the Mexicans. The Germans tried to get Mexicans to attack us.
I'm glad they failed. Anyway, go ahead.
Hey, but guess what? I spent 9 months in jail just because I just brought up the question. It's time to start a third party.
Really?
A third political party.
This is in Delaware? They put you in jail for that?
9 months for riding a bicycle.
Wait, what's your name?
Yeah, I'm the only person ever arrested for riding a bicycle in Delaware.
What was the charge?
I didn't use hand signals. I didn't use hand and arm signals. I was riding on the wrong side of the road.
9 months?
9 months, and I called COVID in there as well.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's okay. But what would you think about a third? I mean, they got Homeland Security actually locked me up. Well, I got a federal court lawsuit against it, but I don't. But anyhow, what about like the American Party? Would that work?
No, and here's why. Third parties, and I'm saying this as a longtime libertarian, somebody who was a life member of the Libertarian Party at the national level, and I resigned as a member of the Libertarian Party back in 2008. So I've been free of them for quite a while. I wish them nothing but the best, but I realistically, they're never going to succeed at getting anybody elected to any significant positions, and they have not succeeded at doing that in the last 50 years. In fact, whether it's the Libertarians or the Green Party or, as you propose, the American Party, Kenneth, it's not going to work, and here's why. Because the Republicans and the Democrats have both completely agreed on something, and they agree that there should be no one else. They agree that they should be the two, they should be the only choices, and that no one else should be allowed on the ballot. Now, they have some rules that they put forth to, block people from getting on the ballot, but every now and then somebody manages to surpass it, right? So like the Libertarians, they raise a ton of money and they spend a ton of time trying to get through these ballot restrictions. And they do it. They do it, but they just don't have what it takes to get the media. They don't have and of course the media is ignoring them on purpose. And there's everything is set against these third parties from having a chance in hell. So, and
if they manage to do anything like that, like when they got a governor from a third party, then they will change the rules based on exactly what they did to make sure it never happens again.
To make them stronger.
I will say, however, it is a great platform to get your message out there if you can get a third party that actually gets some attention.
But they don't, because the mainstream media isn't interested in giving them attention because, well, their bread and butter is literally coming from the Republicans and the Democrats. If they give the third parties too much attention, then the important people in the Republicans and Democrats won't grant them interviews and such. So there's this whole system is just stacked against third parties. And Kenneth, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate it. So here's the
I will say one little exception to that, though. If you are perceived as someone who will take votes away from the Democratic Party, you might get onto Fox News. And if you're perceived as someone who will take votes away from the Republican Party, then you might get onto the others.
Well, for whatever those small chances are, you got to remember, Ed, nobody watching those channels anymore. Their viewerships are literally dying off. Old people are the people that watch those channels. I mean, when's the last time you talked to somebody who was 23 and was familiar with who the hell the hosts are on Fox News? Who knows who Sean Hannity is that's under the age of 30, for instance. So, but here's the solution, okay? Because I don't like to just take a dump on somebody's ideas without giving something, as a possible better idea. If you love freedom and liberty, as we mentioned before, New Hampshire's the destination. If you are a conservative, you ought to get down to Texas. If you are a liberal, leftist, progressive, you ought to get out to California. It's important for people of a like mind to come together. Yeah, the whole West Coast. But it's important for people of a like mind to come together. And here's one of the things that the libertarians who've come to New Hampshire are doing. A lot of them are joining the Republican and Democrat parties here. More so, it seems like the Republicans, but I suspect some of them are joining the Democrats. They're just not talking about it. And they are working within those parties to subvert them and turn them into more freedom-friendly places. And they've had quite a bit of success in working to take over the Republican Party, to the point.
Yeah, we just saw it recently.
What do you mean?
With the vote down of the accepting of the government funds.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
The effects of that.
Well, those weren't even free staters.
No, I understand that, but like people of the freedom mind had a direct effect on New Hampshire being the only state to not accept funding from the federal government.
$27 million in COVID funding.
Well, it's like you were saying, they change the environment by being there, and they make it a place where actually refusing federal control becomes a good idea.
Yes, and New Hampshire also has one of the more hardcore libertarian parties as well, though for a little while it was looking kind of grim for them. They've gotten a lot better in the last year or so with their messaging, so it's good because that pushes things in a certain direction. And libertarians in New Hampshire actually do get media coverage because here we're a large enough force to be a threat. Here we actually are doing things that are worthy of discussion. In fact, I had show prep here tonight. This is a story, just a quick excerpt here from this story that is all about New Hampshire. It was the Boston Globe reporting. They mentioned the 27 million situation where protesters showed up at a meeting of the Executive Council and the governor this week, and the Executive Council voted 4-1 down Republican Party lines. Even though the Republican governor was begging them to go with him, they voted against him. They voted for what the crowd of protesters wanted them to vote for, which was, as you say, to reject all of this. But this whole article is all about how people are coming to these events, various different events in New Hampshire, and making a ruckus and how bad that is. Oh, and they've got status that they're interviewing here in this article. One board member said she's received alarming threats via social media after she supported a masking policy. She said, quote, I guess this is what they said to her.
Twitter is not even a real place.
One of them said, no communist or socialist should be allowed any place in any government, but should be hunted down and exterminated along with their followers, just to be sure. Now, look, I don't agree with violence or anything like that, but the reality is these people, these statists in these positions are getting contacts from people they don't want to hear from.
Hunted down and exterminated for a different point of view?
Yeah, and they don't like it. And some of them are quitting their jobs as a result of it. And I don't feel bad about them quitting their jobs.
What's the old adage? I don't remember who said it. When people fear their governments, there is tyranny. But when governments fear their people, there is liberty.
Mm-hmm.
There was a really good quote in here, too, from Rennie Cushing. He's one of the top Democrats. He's actually the House Minority Leader. He says, quote, I think it's an effort to intimidate and an effort by some people who don't believe in government to undermine government. He said further, we have people who hate government but want to have control over it. We're in very dangerous times, he says. So the leftists, the people that are total pro-state, pro-government, they really are starting to get afraid of living here in New Hampshire because they're surrounded by people who are actually willing to stand up for themselves and oppose all this insanity that's going on. If we didn't get you on tonight, apologies. We got time tomorrow on the live Sunday show. Join us then in the meantime at freetalklive.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build.